Hello, Rabbi.
Hello, hello. I'll be with you in a moment.
Hi, guys.
Hi, Jeff.
I wasn't able to get this on
Hello,
YouTube.
Rabbi.
Hello, hello, hello.
With you in a moment. Hi, guys. Hi, Jeff. Hi. A sunny day in Cape Town today.
A lot cooler than yesterday. It was very warm yesterday. Today it's very overcast. Still quite muggy though.
Okay.
And
Sun's
Jovan?
shining.
Hello,
Sun's
everybody.
shining.
Hello,
Hi.
everybody.
Hi, hi.
Guys, I'll be right with you. Just trying to get the screen share going.
Muggy is better than mugging.
Yeah. True.
Doesn't happen. It happens also in Cape Town.
Hmm.
Not so much.
Yeah.
There we go.
Whoa. Need my,
Perfect.
Good, good.
I should get my, should actually. Sorry, Rambam, one chapter. What chapter is this again? Where are we?
Chapter 2 of Laws of Yom Tov.
Chapter 2.
Should be chopped. Yom Tov.
I just.
Okay, so are we ready to roll? We've got quite a bit to get through. Can you all hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, Rabbi.
Can we start?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Shvitat Yom Tov. That means resting, not working on Shabbos. So yesterday you had the first chapter in this section, which gave some basic foundational laws. And today we're mainly going to be dealing with animals or produce. And the question is something what we call muktzah. Now you should be familiar with the term muktzah from Shabbos. Muktzah literally is a Hebrew word which means designated or set aside. So what is muktzah? Something that is muktzah we don't handle on Shabbos. For example, money. We don't play, you don't do business on Shabbos, you don't buy and sell on Shabbos, so you have no use for money on Shabbos. So therefore, money, for example, is considered muktzah. So we don't handle it on Shabbos. Excuse me. Likewise, something which did not exist when Shabbos came in, or it was not in our mind or thought or plans to use on Shabbos, then that too is muktzah when it does get born or arrive or appear or suddenly become available on Shabbos or on Yom Tov. So here we're talking about Yom Tov. So this will be the guiding principle in today's chapter. Things that either were not around, they didn't exist before Yom Tov came in, or they weren't available, or you did not plan in your mind to use them on Yom Tov. Therefore, they are considered muktzah and may not be used on Yontif should they be born or arrive or become available on Yontif to you. That's the general principle. And now we'll go through a whole lot of scenarios. So it begins with a famous one. A chick that is hatched on the Yontif is forbidden to be used and even to be handled because it's muktzah, because it wasn't around when Yontif came in. It was still inside the mother hen. Different, however, is a calf born on Yontif if its mother was designated to be eaten, because you're allowed to shecht on Yontif. Did you know that? Did you have that yesterday?
No.
You're allowed to. So the big difference between, let me just remind you again, the big difference, the distinctive feature that differentiates Yontif from Shabbos is that on Shabbos you may not cook, on Yontif you may cook, provided the fire was put on before Yontif. You may not light a fire, you may not strike a match or put on a stove or oven on Yontif, but if it was on before, or you made the fire before, you may cook or bake on Yontif. You may even shech a chicken or a calf or a bigger animal if it's for use for eating on Yontif. So the chick that was hatched on Yontif is forbidden. A calf that was born on Yontif, if its mother was designated to be eaten, that you were planning on shechting that calf for Yontif lunch, then the calf that was inside its mother becomes permitted because by dint of its mother. The law is that if you shecht a cow and there's a fetus of a calf inside, that calf is considered already shechted by virtue of the fact that it was part of its mother when the mother was shechted. So you don't have to shecht the calf. It's already permissible. Obviously, you don't eat living things, but you don't have to go through the shechita again. Number two, when animals graze beyond the 2,000 cubit limit, you remember that from the laws of Shabbos, that you can walk on Shabbos 2,000, we learned it last week, I think, didn't we? It's called the tchum. So when animals graze beyond the 2,000 cubit limit, which is, we said, who remembers how much is 2,000 cubits in our language?
1 kilometer.
One kilometer.
Approximately 1 kilometer. I did this with you last week or the week before, I can't remember. We spoke about it with Shabbos. Okay, so if animals are grazing beyond that limit, outside the city limits, but they come back and spend the night in town, they may be considered designating on Yontif, so you can shech them on Yontif. If, however, they graze and spend the night beyond the 2,000 cubit limits, and then should they suddenly arrive unexpectedly, then they are considered muktzah because we didn't expect them to come back because generally they sleep out. 3, a consecrated animal. What does that mean? So he says in the footnote, that means a firstborn animal. Who gets the firstborn animals? Who knows?
Hashem.
The Kohen.
The Kohen, right. Belongs to Hashem.
Sorry, the Kohen.
We give it to the Kohen as a representative of Hashem. So that's quite right. So it's not for our use. The firstborn of every animal, like we have the pidyon haben, even for human, for our own sons. I had a pidyon haben, my son had a pidyon haben, his son had a pidyon haben, 3 generations had pidyon habens. How many people here have been to a pidyon haben ceremony? Redemption of the firstborn?
No.
A baby boy?
Yes.
Some of you have, but some of you have never been to such a ceremony, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, not yet.
Because it's quite rare. Because it has to be a firstborn son to two Israelite parents. Both father and mother are not Kohen or Levi families. And it has to be a natural birth, not cesarean. So that, and it has to be a firstborn son. So it's the exception rather than the rule. Anyway, the firstborn animals are consecrated, and we have to give to the Kohen. So if it became blemished, if it had a mum, a blemish, if it gets a blemish, then it may not be offered as a sacrifice. So the Kohen, the firstborn animal is given to the Kohen, who may not slaughter it until it acquires a permanent blemish. So if it acquires a blemish on Yontif, he did not intend to eat it when Yontif came in, because when Yontif came in, it was unblemished, and you may not eat it until it gets a blemish. So therefore it's muktzah, because when Yontif came in, it was not permissible to you. For this reason, second paragraph in number 3, it is forbidden to inspect the blemishes of a consecrated animal on Yontif. Sometimes you have to ask a rabbi, is this considered a permanent blemish or not? So you mustn't inspect it, because the guy might come to eat it on Yontif, to shecht it, which you're not allowed to do. Number 4, when on Yontif a firstborn animal is born with a blemish, from birth he has this blemish, it's considered as if it were prepared to be slaughtered before Yontif, because it could have been eaten with its mother. If the mother, like we said before, if the mother was prepared, so the calf inside is also available. Nevertheless, it should not be inspected on Yontif, but if you did, and it's okay, you may slaughter it and eat it on Yontif. Here, firstborn animal falls into a cistern on Yontif. It's like a cistern, a well or something. Now you got a problem. You got to get the animal out. The problem is it's muktzah. And if it's muktzah, you can't handle it. So on the other hand, we're worried about this poor animal. We have a principle of the Torah of tsar balachayim, not to allow unnecessary pain to an animal. So we want to help the animal get out of its predicament, but we're not allowed to handle it. So we got to be clever over here. So what do? So we behave shrewdly, or as he says it, with guile. Let's just call it shrewdly. I prefer clever or shrewd. So the firstborn animal, which is muktzah, falls into a cistern on Yontif. You should give it the necessary nourishment while it's in the cistern. Throw it down food, make sure it's okay. But you're not allowed to pull it out, because since it is a firstborn animal, you may not eat it until it becomes blemished. If it's not blemished, you may not, it's muktzah, so you may not pull it out. Now, if a cow and its calf both fall into the cistern on Yontif, so here we're going to be clever and shrewd. We may take one out with the intent of slaughtering it, but then we change our mind and we don't slaughter it. Then we're acting cleverly or with guile, and we take the other one out, also with the intent of slaughtering it, and then we can slaughter either one of them that we desire. Now, even though this seems like we are playing games over here, and we're sort of being clever, looking for legal loopholes, and not being so straightforward, in this case, we're permitted to play clever and be shrewd, because we're worried about the suffering of these animals. And therefore, to help the animals get out of the cistern or the well, we're allowed to make this chokhmah, this shrewd calculation. Number 5, all ducks, chickens, and doves. These are all kosher fowl. If it's kept in your home, it's considered to be prepared for slaughter. They don't have to be designated. You don't have to go up to it on Erev Yom. Okay, I'm going to shech this chicken tomorrow, this duck. You know, chickens and ducks and geese and turkey and doves are all kosher fowl. So if it's in your property, we consider it that it's all open hunting season. It's fair game. You don't have to designate it specially before Yom Tov. However, doves in a dovecote, or wild doves that nest in one's loft, or other fowl that nest in basins or buildings or orchards, are considered muktzah because they're not the same as your domestic animals. To slaughter them on a holiday, you would have to designate it before. 6. Let's say there's a dovecote and it's got black doves and white doves. So you designated that you're going to have the black and white doves to be available to you for shechting and eating on Yom Tov. Then you come on Yom Tov, and what do you find? The white doves are where the black doves used to be, and the black doves are where the white ones used to be. So can we assume that the white and black dove just swapped places? And these are the same ones that I designated yesterday, which would be permissible? No, we cannot assume that. It may well be that the white and black doves that we designated yesterday flew the coop. They're gone. And these are new white and black doves, and that's why they're in the wrong coops, wrong dovecotes. So if we're in doubt, it's forbidden. If he designated 2 and found 3, they're all forbidden, because you can't assume that just the third one arrived. Maybe those 2 left and 3 new ones came, which were not designated. But if he designated 3 and found 2, it's permitted. We can assume just one just left. If he designated doves inside the nest and found them in front of the nest, that's still okay, provided they can't fly away. Although there is another nest within 50 cubits at a diagonal, these doves are permitted. For doves that waddle only in a straight line to their nest. So we're pretty confident that these are the actual doves that we designated yesterday. What about fish? Number 7. You allowed to go fishing on Yom Tov?
I'll say no.
You're spending Yom Tov in, what's that famous fishing place? No, somewhere on the way to the game reserve. What's it called? People go there to fish. Help me out.
Dahlstrom.
Dahlstrom, yeah, Dahlstrom. You're spending Yom Tov in Dahlstrom. Can you go fishing on Yom Tov? So generally, you're not allowed to, because you're trapping, and it was not designated because it's fish in the sea or the river or the lake, whatever. But what about if it's a large fish pond and it's in your property? So is it considered pre-designated? So these are the rules. Fish in large ponds. Fish in large ponds, beast and fowl in large pens, any other beast that has to be snared, meaning caught, trapped, captured, to the point where it's necessary, we have to say, bring a net so we can catch it. Such a living creature is considered muktzah, and you may not snare it or capture it or catch it on Yom Tov. Meaning, even if it's in your property, but you need a net or you need some device to go catch it, it's not considered designated. And you're not allowed to trap on Yom Tov. It's one of the 39 forbidden things. But actually, no, trapping is, I don't think trapping is the problem. I think the problem is muktzah. I take that back. I'm not sure about the trapping on Yom Tov. On Shabbos, you may not. On Yom Tov, I'm not sure. But certainly, it's considered muktzah because it is not easily available. And if you do catch it, you may not eat it. By contrast, every living creature that can be snared without a net, meaning you just go and chop it, that's considered available. Similarly, when a wild beast establishes its home in an orchard near a city, its small offspring that do not require effort to capture need not be designated because one has in mind to take them for food on the holiday. What kind of wild animals are we eating? Well, let's say a buck. All buck are kosher. So let's say you have a buck family arrives into your property. It had established, no, it doesn't arrive in your home. It established its home in an orchard nearby. The small offspring that are easy to take do not have to be especially designated. We assume that they're considered available even before when Yom Tov comes in, and therefore we can take them. So you can take a little dough or something and shecht it, if you like game. 8. Although on the day before Yom Tov, a hunter sets snares or nets, traps for a beast, fowl, or fish, on the Yom Tov itself, he should not take living creatures that were captured unless he knows for a fact that they were captured before Yom Tov. So how will he know? I don't know. He'll have to work it out. But if he cannot work it out and know for a fact that they were trapped before Yom Tov, there's a chance they were trapped on Yom Tov, then you may not use it because it's muktzah. Second paragraph of 8. When a person makes a dam in a water conduit on the day before Yom Tov, and he gets up early the next morning and he finds fish there, they are permitted. We're assuming they were trapped before Yom Tov came in last night. We're not 100% sure. Maybe they came in the middle of the night. I don't know. Who knows the habits of fish? Do the fish swim around at night the same as they do, or do they sleep at night? No fishermen here in the minyan today? Okay. Anyway, number 9. When a closed building was filled with produce that had been designated for use and was opened by natural forces on a holiday, there was a hurricane and it blew the doors open, which you normally could not have opened on Shabbos, on Yom Tov, one is permitted to take produce from the opening. Because basically it was designated before Yom Tov. Second paragraph in 9, a person who stands and surveys fruit set out to dry on Erev Yom Tov in the sabbatical year, Shemitah, the 7th year, when we don't harvest from our own fields, but we take from things that are growing wild. When all the produce is ownerless, then you may take it. But if you're looking at it, you're surveying it before Yom Tov, you have to make a mark and say, I'm going to take the produce from this point to this point, from this tree to this tree or something. If you didn't make a mark and say and designate it, then you may not take it. 10. Now this happens. This is something very common. You may have visitors on Yom Tov. It's a whole separate halacha. You know that you're allowed to invite non-Jews for Friday night dinner, for Shabbos lunch, but you're not meant to invite non-Jews for Yom Tov meals. Did you know that? This has nothing to do with racism. This is a technical halacha because on Yontif you're allowed to cook. But you're only allowed to cook for Jews who need to eat. Gentiles don't need you to cook for them. So you're not allowed to cook extra for non-Jewish guests. So therefore, you're not meant to invite non-Jews on Yontif. So if I have someone I know who's going out or married to a non-Jewish person, and I'm trying to draw them closer to Yiddishkeit, maybe to encourage them to do a conversion or whatever, and I want them to see a Jewish Shabbos or Yontif, I have to make sure to invite them on Shabbos, but not on Yontif. So if I'm looking for Yontif invitation, then I invite them for Yontif, which falls on Friday night or Shabbos. So a lot of people have problems that they have intermarriages in their own family, and like Rosh Hashanah meal, everybody comes and you don't invite them, you have a whole family faribul and a feud, and it causes big problems. So you have to just try and arrange it on a Yontif which falls on Shabbos. Sometimes it doesn't, and you have a problem, but I'm not going to go into that now. So if a non-Jew is coming to you, whether for a meal or even not for a meal, it just arrives. Maybe you helped out a non-Jew during the week in business, and they arrive on Tuesday, which happens to be Yontif, to bring you a gift. They bring you a bottle of Black Label or whatever. So if the non-Jew brings a present of food for a Jew on Yontif, it depends what he's bringing. Let's say he's bringing vegetables. If some of that vegetable is still growing in the ground down the road in the fields, or if he brought an animal, fowl, or fish that could possibly have been caught on that day, they are forbidden until the evening, until after Yontif. And after Yontif, you have to wait enough time for it to have been possible to perform the forbidden activity, which is either to cut the vegetables or to catch the fish or whatever it might be. So let's say it would take a half hour to do it. So you have to wait till after Yontif, and you have to wait till a half hour after Yontif, the time that it would take to cut the vegetables or catch the fish or whatever it might be. Even if a Gentile brings a myrtle or the like, one should not smell its fragrance until the evening, after waiting the time necessary to pick it, however long that might be. Because we're assuming that it was cut on Yontif, and therefore it's muktzah and forbidden. If none of the type of produce that it brings remains attached to the ground, which means it's not growing anymore, so it was obviously harvested earlier, before Yontif. So it's clear from what he's bringing that it's not growing anymore. So it must have been picked before Yontif, or it's clear from the fish or the animal that they were caught on the previous day. Then they are permitted, provided he didn't bring them in from beyond the 2,000 cubit limit. If he did, then they're forbidden for another reason. Food that was brought from outside the 2,000 cubit limit for one Jew is permitted to be eaten by a different Jew, but not by the one who was brought for. 11. Often, especially with the palms, branches fall off by themselves, right? Now, you might want to use those branches to make a fire, to cook on Yontif, or to add to your existing fire, because we said you're allowed to cook on Yontif. So when branches fall from a palm tree on Yontif, it's forbidden to use them as firewood because of nolad, meaning they were born on Yontif. Obviously, branches are not born, but if it's still attached to the tree when Yontif comes in, and after Yontif came in, it then fell by itself to the ground, even though you didn't cut it, which you're not allowed to do on Yontif, even though it fell by itself, it's sort of born on Yontif. It only became available on Yontif. It was not available before Yontif because it was still hanging on the tree. So therefore, it's muktzeh, and you may not use it on Yontif. If, however, they fell directly into an oven, you have a braai going in your garden under a palm tree, and the branch fell off in the palm tree into the braai. How's that? Good aim, eh? So then one may add a larger quantity of wood and you may kindle them. One may not begin taking from a pile of straw or a storage pile of wood on Yontif unless you prepared it erev Yontif. It's also muktzah. 12. It's forbidden to chop wood that had been placed in a pile of beams. So you're allowed to chop wood for the fire on Yontif, but not if that wood was clearly not designated for firewood. If it was part of a pile of beams, meaning it was designated not for firewood, but for construction, for example, you may now not change your mind on Yontif and use it for firewood. Utensils that broke on a holiday may not be used for kindling. Again, they are no lot. You had a wooden jug or something, and it broke, so you can't use it anymore. But I could throw it in the fire. It's good firewood. But when Yontif came in, it wasn't firewood. It was a jug or something. So you may not use it. However, one may use utensils that are intact, not broken, or utensils that were broken before Yontif, because they were already sort of designated for firewood. Similarly, nuts or almonds eaten before Yontif, their shells may be used on Yontif. There's different opinions about that. I'm going to move, we're running out of time. 13, a freshly cut thorny branch is muktzah because it's not fit for kindling, because we don't use thorny stuff for kindling. Therefore, one may not use it as a spit for your braai, for roasting meat. Yeah, braai a lamb on a spit. You thought it was invented in Pretoria, eh? Give a look. The Rambam's in Spain 800 years ago. Even actually the Korban Pesach, the Paschal Lamb in the Torah, written over 3,000 years ago, the Paschal Lamb was a lamb on a spit. That's how they were supposed to eat it, by the way. 14. We may take wood that is placed next to the walls of the hut to use for kindling, but we may not bring it in from the field. I'm moving quickly because we're running out of time. 15, the leaves of reeds or vines have been collected in an enclosure. Since they can be dispersed by the wind, it's considered as if they have already been dispersed, and you have to now collect them, so they're not designated and set aside before Yontif, so it's like muktzah, and you may not use it. If, however, one placed a heavy utensil over them before Yontif, then clearly you designated it, so it's fine. 16, if an animal dies on Yontif, it's really muktzah. You're not supposed to handle a dead animal on Yontif. If it was very ill on the day before Yontif, that means you already figured it's going to die. So you already had in mind what you're going to do with this dead carcass. So you then may cut it up and feed it to the dogs. But if it was not very ill, if it was not dying before Yontif, then it's muktzah and may not be handled on Yontif. 17. Fish, fowl, and beasts that are muktzah may not be given water on a holiday, nor is it permitted to place food before them. This is a safeguard instituted lest one come and take them. Any objects or living creatures that are forbidden to be eaten or used on a holiday because they are muktzah are also forbidden to be carried. You guys have pets? Who has a Maltese poodle?
No?
What do you do with your pets? You not handle your pets the whole Shabbos and Yom? You don't feed your pets on Yom? What, do they starve to death? What kind of law is this?
can feed your own.
Aha, very good. So look clearly, look carefully. Number 17. Fish, fowl, and beast that are muktzah. What does it mean they're muktzah? They were set aside. We're not planning on using them or interacting with them on Yom Tov. It's not my pet fish, my goldfish in the fish bowl. It's not my Maltese poodle. It's not my pet zebra. You know, a guy has a pet zebra in Glen Hazen? Yeah, it's true, promise. Anyway, so if it's not yours, then you may not feed them. So you can't just go feed the pigeons on Yom Tov. But if it's your animals, your pets, then not only may you, you must, you're obligated. 18, to end when a person brings earth into his domain. Now, in the olden days, what were their floors made of? They didn't have Italian tiles. They didn't have linoleum. They didn't have very nice mahogany floors. What were the floors made of in the old days? Dirt.
Mud.
Sand, dirt. They caked the sand to make it hard that you shouldn't have to walk on like a beach. But it was basically sand, it was earth. So when a person brings earth into his domain before Yom Tov, it's considered to be prepared for use, provided that he designates a corner of his courtyard as its place. Then you can carry it into the house and use it for whatever you need. Similarly, ash that came from fuel burned before Yom Tov is considered to be prepared for use. If it came from fuel burned on Yom Tov, it's permitted to use as long as it's warm enough to cook an egg still. Then it's like has the same status as the fire that it came from. If not, then it's like nolad, it was born anew on Yom Tov, and you may not use it. The following rules apply when a person has an iron shaft implanted in the ground before Yom Tov, and he pulls it out, and with the shaft comes a clod of earth. If it's a powdery, then you could use it to cover earth on your earthen floor in your house. But if you picked up a big clod of earth, not powdery, you may not crumble it on the holiday. That's preparing it on the holiday, which you're not allowed to do. Thank you very much. Thank you for your patience. We went a bit over time. I hope that wasn't too bad, eh?
Very
So,
informative.
Very interesting.
here's everyone.
Thank
Thank
you.
you, Rabbi.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you very much.
Have a good
Thanks.
week. Bye,
Thanks,
gesund.
Rabbi.
Thanks.
Good talk.
Thanks, Rabbi.
Listen, if you're going away on holiday, you can still learn on holiday too, eh? That's the advantage of having a Zoom shiur. Wherever you are, I'll give you the shiur whether you're in Plet or Clifton or Kemps Bay or Schlanga. The shiur goes on, okay? I'm not going away yet.
A quick question, Rabbi.
Thanks,
Good.
Rabbi.
Sheer pleasure.
Bye-bye.
Good. Rabbi, I'm intrigued about the zebra in Glen Hazel.
Yes, it's on Galliot Road.
Really?
Opposite Stanley Seep's house.
Really?
There's a,
Okay, Martin, you had a question?
Yes, the
There's a
thing
question.
about having a non-Jew on Shabbos, is that because you cook before Shabbos?
Yes, because you're not allowed to cook on Shabbos, so everything is pre-cooked before Shabbos, so that's no problem. The problem on Yom Tov is that you're allowed to cook on Yom Tov, but you're only allowed to cook for fellow Jews on Yom Tov. So we're afraid you're going to add extra food for your non-Jewish guests, and it means you're cooking for non-Jews on Yom Tov, which you're not allowed to do. So therefore we say don't invite non-Jews for Yom Tov.
Another quick thing, it's not 100% on this, but if you got a pet dog, and you got a normal Eruv, can you take your dog for a walk outside your property? on
You may.
Shabbos?
Yes, you may.
Why not?
But it has to be your
You
dog.
see that?
Yes,
Yes.
I understand that.
Walking a pet on Shabbos is not problematic. And with an Erev, it's you could even carry it.
So that Shabbos or Yom Tov obviously would be much the same.
Yeah.
Thanks so much.
But there are some details here. I actually printed this up before the share. See, I don't have a pet, so I never really dealt with this. He says like this, while the pet may be collared and leashed, it must be clear that you're walking an animal, not carrying a leash. But that's when there's no Erev. So okay, when there's an Erev, it makes it easier.
Okay.
Okay,
Thanks
guys,
a-
have a good week. Zai gesund.
You as well.
Very
And a
good.
good Hanukkah to you, Rabbi.
Happy Hanukkah.
Yes.
Happy Hanukkah.
Chag Sameach.
God bless. Thursday night starts
Chag
Hanukkah.
Sameach.
Make sure you light your
Chag
menorah
Sameach.
every night starting Thursday night.
All day. Lots of light and love.
Amen.
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 Amen.